Morning, my name is Wendy Pitkin. I'm here interviewing Rosemary Tyndall on behalf of the Bay Island Community Service Seniors Month. Thank you for coming. What brought you to the islands and when did this occur?
It would have been about 1989. Mm-hmm. We used to come, my auntie lived here, and she was very involved with the Bowls Club, and I used to bring them, we worked out bush, and so I used to bring the boys down for a holiday with Auntie Jean. We used to camp on her block of land round in Stock Road, and we came a few times and from Toowoomba, and because I have 4 boys, so they loved it. And I was really badass. I lived over in West Australia and came back to Toowoomba, but because it was so high in sea level, all of a sudden my asthma just was out of control. Mm-hmm. And we used to come here and I'd get none. And so that's what brought us here. Long story short, and I've been great. Must be the salt air and the clean living.
Did you buy a house or build a house when you came?
We rented it first. Mm-hmm. We actually took over my auntie's lease, and then we bought a house, and we're the second owner of our house. Yes, down in Eucalypt Street. So,
what was life like on the islands here when you arrived?
Great. Very well. Not everything was here, and my boys used to say, "Oh, there's nothing to do here," and I go, "But you've got more freedom here than you ever did in Toowoomba, because you can go fishing and bike riding and whatever." Roy worked away, 30 days and home 10, so we felt we were safe. Not a lot of crime on the island back then. A bit of pilfering the fuel from fuel cans and things from cars down the front, which is happening again. But other than that, nobody was attacked or whatever. And so we joined the fire brigade more or less from then on. And my boys were only 15 at the time when we first started coming here, and they were the youngest members of the fire brigade then, under Bobby Warner, who was the chief then. And he tucked them, and with Roy being away, it was good for them and good for us.
So what made you decide to get yourself involved in the community?
I was asked by Bobby Warner if I could be secretary to the fire brigade, and he handed me a box, and there was money tingling in it. And I said, "And what's this?" And he said, "Oh, didn't I tell you you're also treasurer?" I just got hooked in, I suppose, because the boys were involved, and when Roy was home, he helped out as well. Because it wasn't as formal as it is now. It was, they set the siren off and everybody just came running, And it was sort of called the booze brigade then, because, the RSL had said we'd be at a fire and they'd send down a carton of grog, which is a no-no these days.
Some of the things that change around.
Well, we used to wait, they'd be hanging around a lot, making sure the fire was out and dampening down, and it was, was a bit more free and easy. And then I got involved, well, just sort of one thing led to the other, At the time, the helicopters used to come in to take sick people off, and they used to fly around Tommy Daunt's farm looking for his flag to see which way the wind was blowing. And someone said, "Why don't we do some fundraising to get that done?" And I say, "Well, yeah, why don't we?" And no one was doing anything. And I used to work in telephone sales, so I just took it upon my own self, stepped on a couple of toes with the ambulance committee. But I went to approach the RSL, the church, the local St. Peter's Church, the Bowls Club, and I don't think we had lines back then, but anyway, they gave me $200 each, and we put up the windsocket on Jackson Oval for the helicopter. And a guy called Dennis Grant on Carragara, he built it. And he also built the one on land. The windsock couldn't have a light on it because back then solar power was too dear and we couldn't afford that because we'd spent all the money, and the council came along and helped us with the bit that we didn't have. And Roy's uncle with his 4-wheel drive set it up. So we're the only ones that know how to take it down and put it back up again. So that was sort of started, and then, you know, and I'm good at putting myself forward and asking for things, not on my own behalf, but other people.
Have you still enjoyed living here?
Oh, I love it. Wouldn't live anywhere else. It's one of those places I think you either love it or you hate it. And like my health wise was here, and you know, like I've done lots of things I wouldn't have done anywhere else. I've been the postie over here. I was one of the posties over here when they first started. That was like being on a car rally every day. So that was fun.
There's one postie, now there's 9.
Yeah, I was only, when GST came in, I was the postie, and I was the only one. My boss was away, and I was still working at 7 o'clock at night. Because I thought it was supposed to be all done in one day, and when he came back, he said, "Oh, you could have done that over a couple of days." I went, "Oh, that's good to know."
Is there any specific memorable event that sticks out in your mind over the years?
Well, we've had a lot of fun. As I said, Roy was away all the time, and you never know what he was going to come home to, because I was involved with the Have a Goes, which was the theatre group. And as I said, I've been Fifi the Ferret and the Mangrove Witch. Bev Kavanagh and her husband, they were the ones that started the craft group here too. And she was so clever with costumes. You just give her an idea and she'd make it, and it was great. Still got some of her costumes actually. We used, you know, Christmas Carnival with the Lions Club when we were the Lions, and I was the only women president of Lions at one stage. What else? The Lions Park down. We started off. We were the ones that planted the council gave us the what do you call those things? Bollards, and we planted them. Well, with all the lions did, you know. And my boys pushing them into the ground, and they're still there, and planted trees down there. There's so many things, you know.
Belly dancing?
Yeah, we did. We had this lady was Samantha, tiny little thing, was an ex-stripper in Sydney, and she came up here and built a roundhouse round the corner there. And her feet were so tiny, her husband used to cut the shoes down and make them into these high heels, which were about this big. And she decided to teach a belly dancing class. So all of us, didn't matter whether we were young or old, she did all, and she put on a great show too. She was very good at doing masks and things with paper mache, and so we had fun with that, and that caused a bit of a stir on the island, I can tell you, because Samantha was this tiny little thing, and she'd go up the RSL in all these outlandish clothes that all the old fellas' eyes just about bugged out of their head. I was also one of the first machine managers up at the club. I was a volunteer first with the club because I didn't have a job. I had a job on the mainland, but that was when the boats only went till 6 o'clock. So that was a real battle. And then I started volunteering up the RSL, which led, when it was just a hole in the wall, and then that led to a job when the machines came in. So I was one of the first machine managers with the pokies. And, so I was up there for quite a while. And then I became a first responder. As I said, I was already in the fire brigade, which led to the first responding, because we used to help out the ambulance, which they still do. So it's always been that kind of community. Everybody, like when there was a fire here, before the fire was even out, there was people handing out stuff. Shelley at the shop used to put a basket out the front, and people would put food in it for them. And most of the time they had a place to stay, and everything they needed without going to the mainland. People, the Salvation Army ring up and say, "What can we do to help?" And they go, "Well, we don't need anything." The islands, that's what's good about the island. It all comes together when there's something like that.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your lovely input.
There's probably more.
It's all right. you'll be like everybody else, and you'll go, I should have said this and I should have said that. But that's okay.